glad we got the morning slot so that you guys all big so excited for administration. Now, the thing about this week is that there is so many aspects to leading a church that we need to be cognizant of, that you need to be aware of. And some of you are being challenged just in simple frameworks of how church operates. Some of you will find yourself getting stuck in a mindset that says, well, it's all about X. And if I've listened to what you guys have been hearing the last couple of days, you do realize that there are multifacets that you need to be thinking of. Leaning one way or the next can actually be quite dangerous for you. Now, the thing about admin is that it starts and ends with the detail. But before we get into that, I just wanted to introduce myself and Kim so you know where we're at. Kim and I have been part of Cornerstone Church for a number of years. Our joke is that we first came here in the late 1900s. So we came here in 1999. We came from a very different church understanding. But from the get-go, Kim and I were looking to get involved. Like many of you, you find yourself in a local church and you're looking to get involved. And we could see, just from our perspective, that things could be done better. And we'd like to have done things differently. But it took many, many years for the eldership to recognize our gift. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so we are married. This past December, we've been married for 28 years. We have 2 children, 21 and 18 years old. And it's a real privilege that we find ourselves growing up in, can I say, the house of God, being loved by people, being loved by a community, and in a space for us to be able to love back. We've led life groups over the years. We've seen people come through. We've seen people struggle. And the call of God on us to be part of building the kingdom is such a privilege. When Marcus asked Kim and I to join the eldership team, it was, I think we had coffee, or was it a dinner? I think it was a dinner in August of 2010, I think it was. And Marcus said, we'd like to invite you to join the eldership team. Kim, of course, has been a missionary in China since she was yay high. And she's like, I want to be a missionary in China since she was yay high. And so the call of God was like shouting in her heart to say, yes, yes, yes. And I'm like, well, what does that mean, Marcus? What do you want us to do? He says, we just would like you to focus on the admin of the church. So I asked, well, what is that? She's like, the stuff, And I think for many church leaders, visionary type church leaders, it's just the stuff that happens. You don't really want to be bogged down with too many details. Many elders, lead elders, are quite visionary in their view of things, and the truth is that that vision is underpinned by getting it done, and you need a team to get that done. So Kim and I were the very first appointed couple onto eldership that had a very specific job. Before us, Cornerstone's approach, as it has been for many years, since Pa fell off the bus, is it's been about advancing the kingdom, which includes planting churches. And so to give elders the experience of what it means to lead a church, elders were given the opportunity to do a kids ministry for a season, to do the finances for a season, to run some kind of operations or whatever it is for a season, so that when they landed up in a space, you had some sort of experience. But evangelists are not necessarily inclined to finance or detail, or can I just put it all under this umbrella, admin? And so for Kim and I, it was like stepping into, a room full of marmalade. It was wonderful. And because not everybody likes marmalade, but And so we're like, sure, Lord, this is such a privilege that we get to do what we enjoy. When we talk Excel spreadsheets, we get really excited. And if you look under the chair, there's an Excel spreadsheet for everyone. That's just, yeah. And so like figuring out what it is that we're good at and whether or not you can just fall into so you've heard it, stay in your lane. People say, like, just do what you're good at. But the thing is that you're not just one thing. And if you get hyper-focused on that one thing, then admin can become quite restrictive. And so I'm going to read you a scripture. It's from 1 Corinthians 12. It says, "And God has appointed in the church first apostles, then second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then the gifts of healing, helping, administrating, and various kinds of tongues." And that word administrating is listed there amongst the gifts. It is one gift, and it's not all of who we are. It's not just if we restrict ourselves about being kingdom-minded, and we land up in a space where this has got nothing to do with a database, I'm not interested. Evangelism is not for me. Life group's not for me. But if it's to do with admin, then I'll put my hand up. That can't be who we are. It is something we do, something we have an anointing for, something we have a grace for. And so we have more of a grace for managing the detail than other people in the church. But it's if we restrict ourselves to we're not prophetic, or God doesn't speak to us, then we will be shortchanging ourselves in terms of the call that God has on us. So we're not the prophets, so to speak. We're not graced in the gift of prophecy, but often God would speak to Kim and bring a prophetic picture. And so we're not restricting ourselves to that one thing. However, the gifts work together. There's that Ephesians 4:11 scripture that talks about the fivefold ministry. And many, many years ago, Keir Taylor used this example of the fivefold ministry going into an area and pioneering into a space. Now, if you know those fivefold ministries, you can imagine if the evangelist got up to the front and there was no stage and there was no microphone, he'd be like, "Gosh, these guys are not serious." And then you can, but if they work together, if we work together, then this hand-holding hand approach is that what we're doing is what's good for the kingdom of God. The admin guy isn't just the dog's body that gets the detail done and then the good stuff starts. And it's not like if the admin guy was like, "Well, this is the most important stuff and I'll just give him his moment in the sun." That's bad attitude. That's not helpful to anybody. And so we understand that we have a part to play on the team. If you've arranged any kind of event, you know that the preacher is not necessarily the guy that stands at the door and welcome, or the people that stand behind the coffee shop and make tea. Everybody works together in team. And so good administration is helpful. Administration is not necessarily vision, but administration does not lead the church. It is a framework around which things need to take place. Things hang off this frame. And it's so important for us. It's freeing for us. You kind of would think it's restrictive because, admin gets pushed aside. No, we all have our place. It's a bit like when you guys have heard this week, eldership is not a title. Eldership is a function, right? And so this administration is a function. We get to do it. We get to enjoy it. We have a grace for it. And so we work together in team. But good administration is really, really helpful. And finding the right people to do that in any kind of setting, in any organization, is super helpful. And so it is unhelpful if you grab someone who's not called to eldership to be like, "Actually, they're such a nice guy. Let's put him onto eldership." You'd make a mistake, I'm guessing. Or if you get somebody who's have got 5 minutes grace for kids and you just chuck them at Friday night kids club, it's just not going to work. So there has to be a grace. Yet in all of us, there's this space of being stretched into the more that God has for us. So corporates very much do the whole SWOT analysis. They lean into your weaknesses. And in our space, we want to lean into our strengths so that we can work well as a team. But that does not mean that we don't pray for healing. We don't trust God for words of prophecy. We don't get involved in evangelism. We're all involved in building the kingdom together. But we will have a leaning one way or the next. Understanding my space on the team is what keeps me free. So I'm just going to run through a few things that will make sense to you as to why administration is good for you. I know that you all nod your head and say amen to every one of these points. And so the first one is administration gets the vision done. And so you heard Grant yesterday talking about if the lead elder is vague, or maybe not necessarily the lead elder, but the guy leading the space. If the lead elder is vague about what he wants, then he's going to be very upset when he walks into the room. He'll be like, is this what you guys did? This is not what I said. It's exactly what you said, and then you left the room. You said, I don't know, pick a topic, make a ladies' meeting, and then when you came in, it was just like this, and this is not a ladies' meeting. Ladies' meetings need a bit more flowers, they need a bit more color. Generally, there's a bit more effort being put into a ladies' meeting than a guys' meeting. Generally, not always, but generally. The most effort in Cornerstone Church gets put into our ladies' kaleidoscope meeting and our big weekend for kids. Maybe more the kids' big weekend. And so good administration is about planning, like getting the job done. So you know how to do it and you know who's doing it. If you think about coming here to church planters training, if you just, for the moment, just humor me for a second or two. What are the details that went into you getting here? The first thing was you heard a message, okay? Either somebody invited you or you saw something. So you saw something because you received an email, just this general, like you're part of a list, or somebody forwarded you a message, or you saw it on Instagram and you saw this famous guy with a PowerPoint saying, we need you. Somewhere along the line there was some kind of communication, and then you had to do the register, which you had to register. Why do you register for a meeting? As Grant was saying, I've got two gifts. I can pitch up on time and I answer my phone. You need to register. Why must you register? So that you can honor the process, honor the idea of saying, I'm going to be there. Why? Because there's more than just arriving here on a Monday morning and saying, I'm here. Because if it was just Kim and I, Monday morning, all 50 of you were lined up outside the door, who's going to suffer the most? We've got lots of chairs. You can sit where you want. You're going to be upset because we don't have enough coffee for you. Like this place, what? There's no tea time, there's no lunch. It's just honoring the process, so all the details. And so this little space here, this one tiny little, very easy event is loaded with detail, and that's where administration comes into play. Somebody had to decide who holds the microphone. Somebody had to decide what kind of teaching is good for you, good for us. What is the Holy Spirit saying is good for you now? Over the years, there's been a number of these events, a number of these teachings, and it's all available on ncmi.net. There's a special church planters training, and people from around the world have put together little videos. So if you've got nothing to do between 2 and 4 in the morning, then you go and you watch these things and you can understand a bit more detail. Okay? Good administration brings clarity, that's obvious. Okay? If there's no clarity, then you really have people running around just wanting to be helpful. And then everyone's like, oh, that's easy, I'm going to go there. And this poor soul is landing up doing all the hard work and feeling all alone. And it could be anything. Think of, there's a whole bunch of weddings in our life at the moment. I don't know, all the youngsters are getting married. And it's a privilege to see this space. But a wedding, there's a lot of detail that goes in the wedding. Every event that you do is not quite a wedding, but it's loaded with emotion. Because there's so many things that need to happen. Some people really want it to run well, and then they get offended and upset because the books on the registration table are skew. It could easily happen, right? But there's so many things that you want, so there's this, let's do it, and let's hold it clearly. Let's make sure that someone who's at the front desk knows that they need to be there. You know that there's enough chairs set out, there's enough food, all the bits and pieces that need to happen. Everyone knows what they're doing. Good administration gets your finances and paperwork in order. Every organization, including church, is responsible for money. You are going to spend money to do any event. In a visionary's mind, money is just a tool. And he's totally right. If money isn't there, then how we spend that little bag becomes really important. And so when you spend the money, and Kim's going to talk through systems now, when you spend the money, there is a responsibility that you have on how that money gets spent and how you report on what was spent. Now, different people have different approaches, and it's all very, very much leadership driven. Some lead elders are very corporate minded, and some guys are very loose. But in the middle, there's a responsibility to hold the finances high so that we honor that. And we'll talk a bit, Kim will talk more into that. The good administration is helpful for the apostolic. Apostolic, I don't know if it's a new word for you, but it's just being sent. So if you free up the finances, or you can at least manage it properly, then at least you can do these outward excursions. You're not saying, Marcus, you can't go because there's no money. Marcus is like, well, God said. So what we need to do is to make sure that we can manage that little God said moment. And what Kim and I are both very good at is walking on water. And you can just take it from there, making it happen. Good administration helps everyone to plan their own time effectively. Who of you do not use an online calendar? You do not use an online calendar. Okay, so you all use an online calendar. Okay, who of you use an online calendar and a paper calendar? Okay, yes, all right. Having a calendar is super important. Why? Because then you know where you need to be, and you know when you need to be there. And so this thing of planning your life, it's a little bit like the 3 words that are very important in every household. Dishes, dishes, dishes. Okay? You're not going to escape those things. And so a calendar is the detail of your life. What are you doing? So whether you're going on holiday, whether you are meeting someone, how bad is it if you come to me and say, hey, can I chat to you? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Then you arrive at the coffee shop and you wait. And Glenn hasn't a clue. Why? Because Glenn did not make a note of the fact that he's made this commitment. There's nothing in my calendar I've completely forgotten. There needs to be a way that you write stuff down. Sorting out bottlenecks, the things that aren't getting done, there's always going to be a bottleneck. There's always going to be a bottleneck. Figuring out, the more you do it, the better you get. And so our room, Cornerstone's house, is a little bit weirdly shaped. And so we've got 3 entrances. That little door, this door, and that door. And whenever we run a big event, it's always one of our headaches, is where do we send the people? How do we do this? And so figuring that out in terms of how many people you're going to have in the room, you've got to find those bottlenecks and work them. It's such a simple thing. Good administration keeps you free to do the apostolic rather than bog you down and having details to put out fires. So you're either the policeman or the fireman, and so you're either just moaning at people or you're putting out fires all day long. Putting out fires is part of what we do. And the evangelists like to be like, oh, we love chaos. We love chaos. It's just amazing. This is what it is. Bring on the chaos. I promise you, evangelists are more administrative than they give themselves credit for. The only chaos they like is when people are receiving. Outside of that, if it's not administrated properly, the pastors, if you're not grabbing these people to say, can I walk a journey with you? If you're not making sure these people get connected to life groups, if you're not phoning up people to say, where are you going? That kind of chaos is like, well, just pull in. No, maybe we'll see you next Sunday, maybe we won't. If you don't see you, I won't even know you're not there. There has to be some administrative mindset that says, I appreciate you, and so I'm going to hold you in high esteem. Systems are just tools. And Kim will talk to some of that. And then the last one, good administration gives the church a great testimony of faithfulness. If you're faithful with little, God will trust you with much. So there's lots and lots of detail that you need to work through. Kim's going to talk through some systems, and then if there's still time, we're going to take some questions. Thank you, Kim.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Kim van Rooyen, wife of the amazing Glenn. I love him so much. So I'm going to talk to you a bit more about detail, but I mean, nothing quite divides the room like a bit of administrative detail. So I'm going to do this the best I can so that nobody falls asleep, and those that are very excited about it are also satisfied. It's a tall order. I did study engineering. I did get an engineering degree, mechanical engineering, but that was a long time ago. I also did accounting at school, so the engineer turned into an accountant, and I still love it so much. I love the detail. I love the fact that accounting has a bottom line and it does have to add up, and you can rely on that. I love it. So I'm going to talk a bit about starting a church, the foundational administration. What's going to happen is you probably thought of a name of the church. That's usually the first thing. That's the first thing for anything, is like, what is the name and what is the logo? That's exciting stuff. But then people are going to start tithing, and you're going to have to do something with that money. I don't suggest you put it into a personal account. You're going to have to get an account in the name of the church. And that bank, okay, let's go to that first slide with the money on. If you're ready. Okay. So I went with, these are actually monsters, but you can think of it as mold. And the theme is because if you leave this stuff, it grows like mold. And eventually somebody's sick and some building has to be destroyed. So we've got to keep the stuff up to keep the mold out so that we keep the place clean. So you got the money, you go to the bank. The bank, they're going to want to know the church name. You've got that, no problem. And the second thing they want to do or want to have is a foundational document. I'm not going to go too much detail. In South Africa, there are basically 2 suggestions I would give of how to register your church. And we can talk through that. The great thing about a democratic constitution is that you don't need a government stamp on a document. But that is very difficult to explain to a lot of people. So there's another way, which is non-profit company that I would recommend you to register as. And that's got a foundational document called a memorandum of intent. Anyway, the bottom line is there's a document and the bank wants it, and you're going to find it. Once it's done, it can go for many years left untouched, unless one day the tax man asks you to change it. So the other person you have to worry about is the tax man. Next slide. All right, but churches in South Africa, we can apply for exemption from tax, which is a wonderful thing. But you really have to get that covered with the tax man. So wherever you plant, whatever country you go to, they have a tax man. And you need to talk to him. You need to broach that conversation. You need to see where you stand with him. Maybe he gives you tax-free, maybe he doesn't. Maybe it's the Isle of Man and there's like liberal tax laws there. But you do need to make sure, and on an annual basis, make sure that that's still the story. He has you tax exempt. In South Africa, churches are seen as public benefit organizations, which means they recognize you help with benefiting the public, and that's why they're happy to declare you tax exempt. So a bit of a journey, a bit of a few branches, or a bit of a couple of hours sitting at a branch in some SARS office somewhere, but you need to get that thing done. Sometimes he wants you to change your foundational document. Just work through that, and so you go. He also wants you to have 3 directors, financial directors, so that they can pin any consequences on you, on 3 people that aren't related. And so you saw through those details. Cool, next one. The money, you start spending the money. You have to account for it, okay? And after a month, it gets very difficult to remember what you spent that 37.23 on Tuesday, the 2nd of February. So you need to have an accounting system. Many years ago, we would have talked about which accounting systems, but there are many, and there are many online, so you don't have to worry about backups. That's an amazing thing. Stuff like that, ups and downs. We're not corporates. We're happy to have somebody online do our stuff for us, but you need a system. And if you really can't stand the stuff, you really have to find somebody. You have to trust God to pay them, because the longer you leave this, the mold grows, and then it gets out of hand. Okay. Mold turns into demons. Just don't do it. Okay. If you're looking for a demon under any bush, you'll find them over here. So let's just keep it to mold and no mold. All right. So those are one more thing that I usually say is accounting is not spending. Spending's like the exciting stuff, and also the stuff that keeps you up at night when there's no money and you're sweating and you aren't sleeping. And when there's too much money, you're also sweating and sleeping. How are you going to get all this done? So both have their problems, but accounting is very specific and very clear-cut and needs constant attention. But constant attention, I say that, but it is like a railway line. Once that thing's going, it's going. So you just want to make sure it's on the right railway line. And every now and again, there's those kinks that change the direction. You just got to make sure you keep on the right track. So it's a kind of a good baby, you know, as long as you got it rolling on the right track. Right. What other systems are there? What can I say to those things? Next slide. Oh, okay, let's get to the verse. Sorry. Proverbs. Let's read it together. So I've taken it from the Message. It just speaks again to my message to you about the mold. Proverbs 24, verse 30 to 34 says, "One day I walked by the field of an old lazybones, and then past the vineyard of a lout. They were overgrown with weeds, thick with thistles, all the fences broken down. I took a long look and pondered what I saw. The fields preached me a sermon and I listened. A nap here, a nap there, a day off here, a day off there. Sit back, take it easy. Do you know what comes next? Just this. You can look forward to a dirt poor life with poverty as your permanent house guest." Okay, so please, just make sure the dishes get done. The dishes. Right, next thing, GTD. GTD, what can that mean? Anybody want to take a guess? No, not you. Nerd. Yeah. Yes, there you go. Getting things done. That's what administration is getting things done. There's actually a book called Getting Things Done, but it's a bit outdated. This stuff moves fast. And like I said, I would have explained certain systems, but there's so many systems that you'll have to crack down on one and we can work it out together kind of thing, or just delve into it. But getting things done, for me, comes down to you must have a system. You must have a system. And in the beginning, maybe it's the back of a little conference pad and you're writing your notes, but when you have to start to collaborate, then everybody has to be bought into everyone has to buy into that system. It doesn't help having a system that nobody uses. So you need to have a system, any system, but it must work and people must buy into it. So I love digital everythings, but I do still have a paper diary. I don't know what that is, but I do. A grocery list on a phone drives me mad. I need my little piece of paper folded. I don't know why I even write it on the right-hand side, but it's more like a mind map of a grocery list. That's my system. I tried to move away from it, couldn't. That's what works. Let it work, In our, at church, we plugged into a membership system. And it served us for a while, but then we needed a more sophisticated rostering system. Now you get some amazing rostering systems, but they cost a lot of money. And so the worship guy chose a membership system with rostering, and it still serves us very well to this day. The old system told us, but it's just the worship guy, and what happens if he moves on? You know what? He's the guy for the moment, and we have to go with what he wants to buy into. And it's served us well. Why? Because it is a system that is used. The rostering is actually used a lot more than even the member listing. So it's a system that's used. And that's the best kind of system. Cool. If you're looking for a membership system, if I got handed a life group, like I'm going there next week, they gave me the address. I don't know many of the people. I go there. What is the first thing I'm going to do to lead these people? I'm going to make a list. I'm going to make a list of their names, at least their numbers. A WhatsApp group is a list now. So that list is very important. And as it grows, we need people to tap into that system. It has to be accessible, usable. So it is one of the most important systems even if it's an Excel spreadsheet. I used to work for a company that managed inventory. We had a very sophisticated algorithm. We used to map the history and make fancy forecasts, like 6 systems. You could choose them on and off. It was super amazing. But our biggest competitor was Excel. Because everyone can use Excel, put it on there, do a thing, suck a thumb. I don't know how they do that for 1 million items, but that's eventually when they call us to help. But even if it's Excel at first, even if it's Google Drive is very accessible. You can see how people change things, multiple editing. Anyway, the point is, the world is our oyster, and we are very grateful for the internet. Other systems will include, like our registration system, we use Quicket. There are other systems, but we've been using it since 2015, and just recently did some research on other systems, and then you're like, wow, we actually partner with these people for the last 10 years. They even know our names. It's crazy. So, yeah, you'll find the systems that you like to use, you want to use, that work for you and work for your team, and that's the project. So, yeah, the next slide is just getting all the things done. Jono used to have a little post on it, do all the things. All the things. So that's what I'm busy saying, is different systems for different things, can be hybrids of systems. Just take a day of fun and work it out. Cool. Then one last mention for HR, which is not a very churchy word. But as the church grows, there will be people that you need to employ. And I do recommend you obey the law, the wisdom of the law, and set up a contract. As I think of this thing, I was like, what is the purpose of this contract? A contract is only necessary after the relationship is broken down. When the relationship breaks and then there's no more relationship, then we're at the very sad place where we're referring to a contract. So I do recommend it. It obeys the law. Set up a contract. It does actually clear up expectations. You thought this and this and this. You didn't realize the person you're employing thought this and this and this. And when you touch the money, it's a very sensitive issue. So set up a contract while you're still friends. Have it there let it get old and rot, and trust that God, or that the road that you're on with this person never digresses to needing a contract. But I just had to put the word in there because it is legal, and in the end it is actually very helpful. So that's me, as much detail as I'm going to cover this morning.
Stay with me. Thank you, Kim. So what we have done is just left a few minutes if there's like a burning issue or something you'd like to ask questions about. Otherwise, we'll touch on a few things. Just, the broad spectrum of systems, everything from that media desk to running your members' database. There's a whole bunch of systems. And the great thing about partnership is you can bounce things off each other. And we all have an opinion as to what works for us. When we started here, the membership database was written by Peter Munnings, who is still part of NCMI. It was his little product. And it worked, but he was the support guy. And so we were throwing in requests for development, but so were so many other churches. And you land up in a space where actually he's happy to help, but he just can't do it anymore. He's got his own business to run, and he was doing this on the side. And so it does help that you land up with a system that is solid and that is scalable. There's a question there, Moses. Yes. All right, so the question is, registering a church, is it a non-profit organization or a trust?
Okay, so non-profit organizations are actually a general term. I wouldn't go for a trust. So I read a book. It's a short book. Half of it is the actual law written out. I thought we could have read it here this morning. That would have been very exciting. But they tell you 4 ways to register, and it comes down to 2. Either you register as a voluntary association, which is like a running club. You don't need the government stamp to associate with another person. That was what I was saying about democracy. You can associate with whoever you want, and then you have this document called the Constitution, and that describes the rules of how you're operating. And that's how a church can also operate. There are actually rules with that where you should have an AGM, there should be voting, all of that. So not entirely the way a church is run. That's why I would go for non-profit company. And then you register on CIPC as a company with directors and a memorandum of intent, and everyone can see who the financial directors are of your church. You do have to do annual financial statements for that, but it is more in line with actually how the church is run. When you take that NPC to the SARS, and then when they decide that you're a PBO, which is a SARS definition, a public benefit organization, together with that you get tax exemption. So it's a bit technical, and yet it's one foundational document either way with some directors and then an application at SARS.
Another question? Frank. Okay.
How do you distribute admin discussion
Yes.
to marketplace elders?
Yes.
You just, the admin team said, we're doing this, and we send it out. And
Yes.
how do you marry?
Okay.
They obviously not.
Okay, so how do you marry? Okay, is the second one linked? Second question?
Second one is more, just I want to understand the structure. So are all your elders part of financial admin discussions?
Okay.
All your elders part of
All right, so we're linking elders to how to get things done, particularly the guys that are not church paid, don't work here full time during the week. So if you just think about, if we can just step outside of church for a second and just think of any organization. Any organization has a set of people and a set of skills. And so if you're going to say, I need to get something done and I'm going to give this to Ian, but he's currently busy on another project, regardless of whether it's a church project or not, he's currently busy on another project. He's not the guy for the moment. And that would count for your marketplace guys too. Some marketplace guys have got capacity. Some of you in the room know a guy named Bill Taylor, recently moved down to the Cape. Bill Taylor does not sleep. So his capacity is sending me emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, dude, get a life. I mean, he's 70, I don't know, 5 in the shade. He just keeps going. Because he has got a different work ethic that drives him to others. So I can ask him to do stuff. It is impossible for me to ask Bill Taylor to stand at registration and manage it. Because he will talk and say hello to everybody and not do registration. So his skill set is not the detail I need at that desk. But if I'm going to give him stuff in terms of planning and arranging, he's the guy. Research, he's the guy. If you want to say, hey, Bill, I'd like to send these guys somewhere, he would do all the planning, he'd present it to me, and then, so you're looking for timing and skills. It is difficult. I guarantee if I made a WhatsApp group, and I asked, and I sent you a list, and I said, hey guys, can anybody help with, and I'll put something out in the air, maybe one of you would answer me. But if I, through relationship, because this is our currency, went across to Julia and I say, hey, Julia, can you help me with something? As soon as I ask her, this relationship is being tested. And she'd be like, yes, I can help you. I'd love to help you. Or her answer would be, I actually can't do that right now. And so this is why the interaction with elders who are not coming in here in the morning is slightly more sensitive. But the truth be told, the same goes for elders that are paid for by the church. So having experience of Cornerstone Church, there's lots of stuff on the go. I know that I can't just go to an elder who's church paid to be like, you're church paid, come and help me with creating this event. Some of them are not even inclined to event management at all. I would not ask them to help me with an event. Okay, some of them have already got a whole lot on their plate, and I wouldn't. And the second question was with regards to elders and finance. Not all elders need to be involved in every financial decision. The law dictates those 3 fiduciary directors as part of the constitution or your MOI. And so the important thing is that you have those key decisions made by key individuals. Big CAPEX kind of conversations, the lead guy will present that to all the elders. Here's the big picture, guys. Anybody got any questions? And very often the marketplace guys who are a lot more like traditionally business minded, they'll be the ones firing all the questions. Have you thought about this? What are you doing about this? How are you doing this? And then in that context, the vision or the macro understanding gets dealt with. The details is all handled in Cornerstone Church by 3 elders. Yeah. Kim wants to add. Don't step off the...
So our calendar is a major point of communication for all the elders, all 37 of them. So I feel like that's a very central point of, is it happening? Isn't it? Where do I have to be? What must I do? So we find that very key. And yeah, it's been a long road because not everybody's inclined to digital and want the printed thing, but then the printed thing is outdated as soon as you print it. So eventually, that's a central point of communication as to what and where and when. Glenn and I, we are fans of keeping the static down. That's what we realized. We like to communicate, but we only like to communicate in bottom lines. So we do try and just keep the noise down. We hope you catch the hint somewhere, and the calendar's a very hinty kind of place.
Yeah, just communicating with elders that have got different spaces. There's an appreciation that if you are not part of the passage conversation or the morning coffee, is that you're going to miss something of what's happening. Therefore, I have a huge responsibility to make sure that the poor guy that's not here, that's on eldership, that at least I'm nudging him or nudging the team from time to time to say, did you remember this as the time gets closer? It's super helpful. They've got sight of it. If I left Cornerstone, and I previously did some work at Barlow Caterpillar, and I walked into Caterpillar, I need to accept their admin system, their processes. And so we've tried. It's not always successful, but when you step into Cornerstone Church, there is a Cornerstone way of doing things that you need to appreciate. So for the most part, we want to give everybody that's part of Cornerstone a Cornerstone email address, so that when you receive communication from us, you're seeing it on your Cornerstone email address. This is our preference. Not everybody likes that. And so when you're looking at, we've chosen Google. There are others. What's the Microsoft one? I forget. But one everything, one life, one drive, one all the rest of it. And so we've chosen Google Calendars. So we then share the Google Calendars with their Google account. If you come in and you don't have a Google account, I'm going to ask you, you need to get a Google account. Cornerstone Church's email is based around Google, so it's either Cornerstone email, which has a calendar linked to Google. Then I'm sharing the information with you. That's your view of life. It's a simple thing, but it is just, it's helpful. Okay, last question, and then we'll hand over. Richard. Teliso, sorry. Yes. Yes, all right. So elders have made a decision, admin team does the execution. How do we keep the team in connection? So if the admin team decide things need to be done differently, how do we let the elders know? Again, let me take off the church hat and put a project hat on. In any space, there's an executive that says, everything's impossible until the lead guy says, let's do that, right? And so there's a step of faith. The lead guy says, let's do that. The admin team comes around, they hit a glitch, some sort of roadblock or hurdle along the way. Their job is to figure something out. Even today, I'd made a mistake and I'd put Stan Phipps in today and tomorrow, but he could only come tomorrow. So yesterday there was this little slight adjustment. I didn't publish that adjustment until I bounced it off Marcus. I said, hey Marcus, this is the mistake that's happened. This is the adjustment I made. You happy with it? He sends me a thumbs up. I then printed it and then we've got the new. So very simple example to say, actually, the admin team, they need to come back, which is why it's so helpful for me to be on eldership. So if Marcus employed me as the admin guy, it's not just a deaconship role. That administrating is like it's a nautical term of how leading and directing and guiding and all that sort of. And so there is a responsibility that I have to make the calls. And then in my capacity, I'm like, actually, this is not just a call I can make. I need to bounce this off other elders. And I often do that. I lean into either Marcus or any one of the team. Okay, so it is important that there's that feedback loop. You can't just come back and say, well, I decided, sorry, it doesn't fit. That's not going to be helpful for the team.